Shocking new developments in the Trayvon Martin case today. Witness number 9 charges that George Zimmerman molested her starting when they were both children and continued until they were teenagers. None of these charges will be admissible at trial, and defence has moved to block public release of the statement, contending it's not relevant to the issues of the case. So what will all this mean in court, if anything? Joining me now exclusively is George Zimmerman's attorney, Mark O'Meara. Mark, welcome back. These are, on the face of it, very explosive and potentially damaging allegations. What can you tell me about them?
Well, on the face of it, you're right. They seem damaging. Of course, as you mentioned, my frustration is that they're absolutely not relevant to anything that is at hand in the true case. They're not admissible. They're not going to get it into a courtroom, nor will they get before a judge in any way. So the frustration that I have is these allegations, which George contends are untrue. Now we need to spend our resources and time rebutting them, and actually put in a difficult, if not delicate, position of deciding how much we attack the source of this story, or just leave it be and move on to what really counts.
The woman is now in her 20s, from Orlando. She is described in various newspaper reports as somebody whose parents were close to the Zimmerman family. Do you know if she is actually a relative or not?
According to the court's order allowing for the release of her statement, I am allowed to state the relationship, and we state it as what it is, which is he is a cousin to this woman.
So it's his cousin, and she says
yes,
that over a period of number of years, George would molest and grope her when she went to the Zimmerman family home. It's actually on audio. This has been released too as well today. Let's listen to what she says in her own words.
It started when I was 6. He's about almost 2 years older than I am. He would reach under the blankets and try to do things, and I would try to push him off, but he was bigger and stronger and older. It was in front of everybody, and I don't know how. I didn't say anything, but I just didn't know any better.
Clearly very emotional testimony there from this woman on this recording. It's hard to work out what her motivation is. Do you have any suspicions yourself as to why she came forward and said this now?
There actually were some other events that happened in the family dynamics that we will get into if we need to. I will remind you, Piers, as I'm sure you're aware, her first statement was the day before to these same police. She called anonymously and said that the whole Zimmerman family were a bunch of racists, that all of them were racists, and that George was, though she cannot come up with any indications or examples of how he was. Now, we also know that the FBI, who seemingly has completed their report, has said the exact opposite, that George is not a racist, and even with their intense looking into him, they cannot come up with one example of it. So I would suggest that maybe her first statement suggesting racism questions her credibility, then the next day she makes up allegations about sexual abuse and also seemingly don't have any cooperation to them.
She is also on the audio tape talking about the racism claim. She doesn't make it specifically about George so much as his family. Let's listen to this.
I was afraid that he had done something because the kid was black. Because growing up, they've always him and his family have always made statements that they don't like black people if they don't act like white people.
I mean, on that specific point, could that be admissible? A family member alleging racism from George's family?
I think that if they could tie that to an event of George's, and if in fact they had some other evidence supporting a suggestion of racism, we know that this case began with the suggestion that George profiled Trayvon because he was a black male. If they were to go back there, it seems that the state has left that behind, or the Trayvon Martin family representatives have left that behind. But if they were going back there, then potentially that part could be relevant. Nothing about the sexual abuse allegations, but that one issue, it might be.
There's been a fairly extraordinary response, I think, from Trayvon Martin's family via the attorney Benjamin Crump, which says as follows: as the state attorney previously stated, witness number 9 would be a rebuttal witness, very similar to that in the Sandusky trial, showing that George Zimmerman has a history of violence and manipulation. Zimmerman's mentality is very relevant to this trial. I suppose I found it extraordinary because it seemed pretty gratuitous to lump in the name Sandusky into all this, because everybody obviously associates him and that name with serious child abuse?
Well, you know, Mr. Crump has said in the past that my client was a racist murderer. He has said then that my client shouldn't have gotten in the car. Then it moderated further that he wasn't getting beat up that badly and didn't need to shoot. You know, he feels as though he needs to say these things to represent the Martin family, and if that has a benefit to his position, he has the right, I guess, to say that. But what I really need to focus on is what we started out this case as. This is charged as a second-degree murder case, and the question is, did George Zimmerman act in appropriate self-defense and using deadly force against force likely to cause great bodily injury? We know he has the broken nose and the head. I think if we focus on those objective facts, all this periphery, which again will never make it into a courtroom, needs to be left just there on the periphery.
You've already requested to have Judge Lester removed. I presume after this huge dump of stuff today, that feeling has been reinforced, is it?
Well, actually, I had asked the state, we filed a motion this morning asking the state not to release the information, and here's the reason. With the motion to recuse, if Judge Lester grants it, I certainly think that he should based upon the rule, but that's his decision. If he grants it, then all of his recent rulings, including the decision to release Witness 9's statements, would be subject to review or reconsideration. So we had asked the state this morning to just delay, since there was no rush to do this, delay until we had an opportunity for the subsequent judge to review it. They decided not to.
Mark O'Meara, as always, thank you very much for coming on the show. We always appreciate you giving a fascinating twist in what has been a fascinating saga. Thank you.
Great to be